Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Rossi Brothers Sports Podcast. My name is John, joined as always by my brother Adam. And today we're joined by someone else. Adam, take it away.
Yes, we're very excited to be joined today by a special guest, Miss Erin Hamrick. Erin grew up in Lafayette, Indiana, and attended Lafayette Jefferson High School, where she excelled both in the classroom and on the soccer field. She played club soccer for the Indianapolis Dynamo FC. She earned a soccer scholarship to the University of Southern Mississippi, where she anchored the Golden Eagle defense as a center defender and set the record for most minutes played in program history. She also played semi-professionally in Iceland during this time. Following her college career, she played soccer in the Women's Premier League in Iowa. She returned to Lafayette Jeff to coach at her high school alma mater, and she earned her MBA at Indiana Wesleyan University. Erin currently lives in Denver, Colorado, where she is the captain of her club soccer team and works as the marketing manager at 5-Star Chemicals. Welcome, Erin. Really glad to have you with us on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, super cool. Thanks
Absolutely,
for being here. And we can tell from your bio here, you've played a lot of soccer throughout your life, at many levels, many different organizations. At what point, when did you realize that soccer was going to play a major role in your life?
So I tried a lot of sports when I was little. I was pretty chubby. So I actually was telling someone the other day that I really wanted to do gymnastics. You know, I'm like, sure, a little stockier. I thought it'd be really good. But when I couldn't pull myself up over the bar and everyone else went to the next level, I think my mom was like, oh, she's competitive, but she's going to get mad.
Okay.
She's not going to do gymnastics. So then that was kind of when I started soccer. And then I think eventually all the other sports kind of went to the wayside and soccer stuck. I mean, I tried t-ball, but I would try to beat my teammate to home plate, you know, running around the bases.
Okay.
Nice.
And then, you know, they're kind of like, you can't do that. Like, you're not racing to home plate. So I do remember in middle school, I had kind of transitioned from playing rec soccer to travel soccer. I played on a boys travel team. And then I think that was when I kind of was talking with my parents and they brought up the idea of playing an hour away in Indianapolis to be more competitive. And that's kind of when the conversation came up of like, hey, is this kind of a fun thing? Is this something you want to do in college? Like, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table and having that conversation with my parents, like, hey, we're going to do this as an investment for your college if you want, because it's going to take, you know, I was playing an hour away for training like 3 to 4 times a week by my sophomore, junior year of high school. And so it was kind of, I think middle school is where I really decided, like, I want to do travel. I'm just going to do soccer. I played a little basketball in high school, but I was really bad. It was more like a social kind of stay in shape for soccer thing. And I could just defend and run up and down the court. So I think probably middle school is when I really decided, like, all right, I'm going to be a soccer player. I just want to play soccer. So that's kind of how that happened.
That makes sense that, when you try to make that commitment both time and financially, that's when it's like, okay, maybe this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, for sure. Did you, so like looking back on your time at Jeff in like high school and sort of more of the like formative kind of soccer years, do you have like specific things you kind of learned in that sort of point of your career, or some like fond memories looking back on that? Or
well, so like I think it was really good for me to play like outside of Lafayette, to play in Indianapolis, just because the competition was so much higher. I mean, it's a bigger city. So there was, and I think that is when I found like really close friends that had the same drive, the same motivation, and like the same interest in soccer. Because I do remember kind of like, you know, middle school, high school, like there's a couple dances I didn't go to because I wanted to go play soccer. You know, and my friends are kind of like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? But then, you know, my friends on my club team were doing the same exact thing. And so I think that that's like, I kind of found my group there, and I definitely am closer with like my club teammates than I was with like high school teammates. So and then that kind of translated into college, right? Like, because when I went to college, I also found that group of people that, we're all getting up for practice really early. We all have to balance schoolwork and soccer, and they know what you're going through. They empathize and have been there with you. And so I think that was kind of what I learned, that there is this group of people that is going through the, trying to do your homework at like 11 o'clock after practice and then getting up for school and then still have training again and just being exhausted. But that's something that everyone's doing. And so it was nice to find that group.
For sure.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I remember Dan, what's his name? The runner in our area, John, won the state title at Bell a few years. That's terrible.
He's a bit older than me.
Yeah.
If we're talking Bell, that's.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember his last name right now. But I remember talking to him when he ran at Lehigh and asked him about college versus high school. And he said, "Oh, college is so much better." And I said, "Oh, why?" Like, yeah, Coach DeRosa, man, he's the dude. He said, "Well, in college, like the only people there are the people who really, really want to be there. And in high school, like some people do it because like your parents tell you to." Like,
yeah, and I kind of like took that when I coached too, right? Like if players were considering playing in college, it was the question of like, do you just kind of want to play in college? Is someone pushing you to play? Do you like love soccer that it could be it's a full-time job, right? In college, you're there as a student athlete, student before athlete, but that is your job, is to perform on the field. And once you sign that letter of intent, you sign your life away. Like they say be there at 4:30 for weights, you're there at 4:30 a.m. for weights. So, I think that's I would kind of ask a lot of those questions just to be sure that that they really wanted to play for the right reasons. So
yeah,
gotcha.
I taught high school for a little bit back in Virginia, and I always loved going to NCAA signings in the library. I'd always be at the library right after school. Gary Leak would do his thing up there. He was just in his zone. But yeah, there were many times I remember thinking like, wow, this is a big moment for everyone. They're super happy, but I wonder if they know like what those next 4 years
what they're getting into. Yeah, they probably did once they got that, like summer workout packet from the coach.
Right.
And said, "All right, here's your summer workout report, be able to pass these fitness tests and things."
Yeah.
So,
good luck. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it would be fun. I like fashion myself as a college athlete sometimes, which is ridiculous because I was nowhere near that. But the one summer I was like, man, I want to get in shape this summer. And I emailed the strength and conditioning coach for the football team at West Virginia. And I said, "Hey, could you give me like your summer workout that you give players?" And he emailed me back and gave it to me. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can do like the football players workout. Let's go. And I tried it for one day and I was destroyed. I was like, you know what? I don't need to be in shape that badly. Whatever I'm doing now is fine.
Yeah. You're like, my scholarship doesn't depend on my fitness test. So
right.
Yeah, I'll keep it a lower bar there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intense. It's I know that like, even though I definitely like would hold myself to a high standard of accountability and go in really nervous. Like, I know I put in the work, but will I pass this fitness test?
Yeah.
So it was, that preseason was pretty stressful.
Sure.
Gotcha. Do you have any specific memories or just like what the recruiting process sort of leading up to that was like for you in general?
So yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that if I could go back and like, talk to 16-year-old Erin, I probably would have done it completely different. Like I wasn't very aware of like conferences, and kind of I found out when I hosted a lot of recruits when they came on their visits, that a lot of people would like kind of pick a conference of like the competitive where they wanted to be, and then they'd try to go and visit those schools, and then you could kind of not necessarily kind of play them against each other, right? Like, hey, I'm looking at this school in your conference and this school and this school, like which one do I want to go to? I was playing in Indy knowing that we went to like college showcases and stuff like that, and it was kind of a cold call, like, hey, I'm going to this showcase, I'm going to email a bunch of coaches. Of course I'd wait till the last minute and my parents would be on my back like, have you emailed all these coaches?
Yeah.
So, and I know there's like recruiting services and stuff like that. I think I went to a couple like sessions to learn about it, but we never went through any of those. And then it's a lot about like who you know and coaches you know. I did ODP, so that's Olympic Development Program. It's like the state team. So essentially in soccer, and it could be a little different now than many years ago when I did it, but you make the state pool, then you make the state team, then the state pool, you go to regional camp, you make the regional team, and then obviously up to the national pool and the national team. And that's a lot how they like for the younger eight, like U17s and things like that for the national team, that's kind of how they're pulling. That's kind of the feeder system. Or at least it was. I know that there's still some sort of structure similar to that now. But like it's a lot of which coaches do you know, who can see you play, like do you know this person that's already there at the university and can they see you? And so I think I should have used that more. But ultimately, you know, I made the decision. I remember sitting down and thinking, do I want to go to like a Big Ten school and sit my freshman year, potentially sophomore year? Because I talked to some coaches. I wasn't the fastest or the biggest, especially for my position. Or do I want to go play D1 and have potential to play my freshman year? And that's what I went with. And so I think that's another thing they don't really talk about in the recruiting process is like, be realistic. Like, what do you want to do? You know, like, do you want to go to a big school and do that? Do you want to go to a smaller school and like be competitive? And so I definitely learned a lot about that. And looking back, I would have done it a little differently.
Gotcha.
So. Would you have looked at one conference and kind of played schools against each other a little bit? Is that what you would have?
Yeah, I definitely like so when I went to Southern Miss, we were Conference USA. It's totally changed now. But I think I probably would have looked at like some of the bigger schools, like UCF was in our conference. And then even if I knew that, so I knew I wanted to go far away from home just for a new experience. And we had family in Alabama, so the South, we would vacation down there. I think I also would have at least talked to some of the SEC schools, because they're just huge down there, right? I don't know if I would have been, we played some of them. They might have been some of those schools that, you know, I would have to sit my freshman year and then come in, which would have been fine, or a decision that I would have had to make. So yeah, I think I would have been more specific on who I was talking to and where I was looking in that recruiting process.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
Okay. You probably got to play against some of those SEC schools.
We did. Yeah, I mean, we played, so like, obviously in Mississippi, there, you know, Mississippi State and Ole Miss, we played them every year. And then we played like Alabama, Auburn. We even played Texas A&M. So we played a lot of those big Southern schools for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, did you have like a specific memory of a college game or even moment in a game that is like a story you're gonna like tell the grandkids over? Like, wow, that moment like stands out.
So not like of where I like, you know, made some big play or something. I mean, there's a couple just like small plays where I can remember like blocking a shot or like a one-on-one blocking. Especially like my very last college game was against UCF. And I remember just kind of battling up against this one forward the whole time. And it just felt good, right? Because I was like shutting her down. As far as like a specific other memory would probably be an injury. So it's not as like
yeah, not necessarily
that is good, but
that's uplifting, I suppose. Yeah.
It was my first college game though, and it was we played Texas A&M, so it's my first game. There's like, I don't know, 3,000 people in the stands, so the biggest game that I've ever played. I get to go in the second half. I went in the first half, and then I got to start the second half because someone was injured, and I dislocated my shoulder, and so like this is
tough way to start.
Yeah, right.
College ball.
Rude awakening.
One of those that I just remember, and I remember my mom was listening, like they were broadcasting it, like over the radio or something, and they're like, "Oh, 16's down." My mom's like, "Oh, well, I know exactly what happened. She dislocated her shoulder again." So, that's probably like one of my. Well, it's definitely a turning point. So that was the second time it had ever happened, and it happened one more time my freshman year, and then I received a medical red shirt my freshman year.
Okay.
So it was kind of a turning point, and it was hard, right? You go in, I'm excited, I earned a starting spot. I'm there, and the doctor's like, this happens one more time and you have to have surgery. So definitely a big point in my college career.
Did you end up ever having to have surgery then?
I did, yeah. Actually, I had surgery my freshman year, and then I have since had another surgery after college, just because I basically the next 4 years I blew out all my repairs, and so I now have a screw in my shoulder.
Dedication to the game, right there.
Right.
Like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, I mean, sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh no, yeah, it's all you.
I was going to ask you, I mean, you alluded to it already, just the intensity of playing a college sport is just something that's hard to wrap my head around. And just in terms of schedule, like your life is filled. You don't have a whole lot of free time or any. But not only that, you were kind of the Iron Woman of the Southern Miss soccer program in terms of most minutes played career-wise. What do you think allowed you to just be that, have that kind of longevity in the program and be able to log all those minutes over your 4+ years there?
I think it was a lot of discipline, because I mean, there's a lot of temptations in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think discipline, and then just kind of surrounding myself with that community, right? So it's like surrounding myself with athletes who also are going to be traveling. You know, my teammates we have to tell our professors we're gone Thursday through Monday. How do you balance everything out? So I think it was a lot of discipline, and just being a leader on the field. I think that I feed off of that. Like, I feed off of being a leader, and like working with people and bringing people up and things like that. And so I think just like discipline, and then just feeding off my community that I surrounded myself with my teammates. Because I mean, even if you are a leader and you have a lot of good days, there's always going to be those rough days, and that's when you can lean on your teammates. And I think just being part of a team helped me through that and sustain it for that whole career.
Well, congratulations. It's kind of cool to
thanks.
have the all-time leader minutes played on the show.
Quite impressive.
Yeah, I think it's since been broken, but I held it for quite a while, so I'll take that.
For sure. I wouldn't have known you mentioned it was broken.
Is that, in terms of like length of season, how different is it comparing the different levels you've played at, you know, in terms of like in like, college versus like high school versus traveling, or does it all kind of blend together if you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of would. You're training all year. I think the only time that we really had a break was maybe kind of Christmas, that time after season. But then as soon as you come back in January, the spring season is literally just fitness. So at the time, you could have, I think, up to like 4 days of like games in your spring, so in your off season. And so you're just training. You're in the weight room, you might have double sessions. And so I think that the spring was always like even more intense than the fall. The fall is a lot of like time, but the spring I always felt was like physically a lot more, because, you know, in the fall you come in, you did all your work in the summertime, you're ready for games. And once you start games, then it's like a game, recovery game, maybe a couple days of prep. And then, I mean, you're not working on fitness. You should already be fit. Right. So I think the spring was always really intense too, because, you know, as a student athlete, you're also trying to figure out your schedule. So I was a fine arts major, and a lot of those classes are only offered at one time. And so you're trying to balance all the classes that you can't take in the fall because you have training. You know, you have to figure out, can I take them in the spring? Can I modify my schedule? All of that. So I think it was just an all year commitment there. And in high school, you know, it's kind of like you're committed, but you have your separate seasons. And in college, it's like you're committed, here's a month off, and then you're right back into it.
It's year round.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned high school. You were able to coach at your high school to return to Jeff, and I guess as an assistant initially, and then you ultimately became head coach. What was that experience like for you, returning to your alma mater like that?
It was really good. I have like a lot of pride in Lafayette, Jeff. And
Sunny.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have the debit card from the?
No, I don't. I don't have that.
Not quite to that level. He has you on that one.
But I feel like a lot of times Lafayette, Jeff, is considered the city school, and like locally it kind of got a bad rap. But I always felt like for myself and my brothers, it was very formative years, and it really formed us to be who we are today. And so I take pride in that they offered so much. Like in the classroom, I mean, there's a bunch of art programs, there was like AP classes, and then we had sports and music. And I thought it was a really good balance and a place for a teenager to form. Mm-hmm. And so going back, I was really excited to be able to give back and, you know, bring that program up to a competitive level. And so nice. Yeah, it was fun. It took a transition though. I will say, going from playing college to coaching high school, I had to take a step back and be like, okay, what level are we at? Where can we actually get? Because I just remember looking at myself in that first season as an assistant coach, like, Erin, you need to chill. Like, you know,
just expectations.
I'm like screaming my head off, like, why are you doing this? Or just that competitive, because not everyone has that as competitive, right? Like they don't have that as much a competitive drive. They're there because it's high school and it's social and they're learning other things. And I think that when I transitioned to being head coach, I really found myself looking at coaching as, hey, you might not go on and play soccer in college, but I can teach you things about life. I can teach you the discipline. I can teach you to be a leader. I can teach you to be responsible, or just a good person, like a teammate. And so I kind of looked at it, because we weren't like, you know, winning state or anything in the high school team, but I kind of looked at it, if you want to go and be that competitive later in life, I can help you get there. I can help you play competitively after high school. But if you're not, then I can teach you other things. And I think I've found a lot of pride in that, and being able to help these high schoolers, you know, because they have so much else. There's so much going on, other than soccer season. Right. So, you know, just taking and that was a transition for me, taking a step back from being this competitive player to, can I be a mentor and can I teach them more than just soccer?
Wow.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Sounds like it would have been a fun coach to play for.
Yeah. I hope so.
If like sort of stepping back to that and trying to maybe, I don't know if this would be a correct way to frame it, but sort of like simplify the sort of coaching philosophy and doing it for high school or something, or there are a couple of like key nuggets maybe from coaches you had in your like playing career that you wanted to really kind of pass down to your players at Jeff there? Or
yeah, I think I had coaches in the past, like even in college, right? Like we've talked about kind of like that discipline and the balance. Like you have to have balance and you have to empathize and know where they're coming from. And so I think I took that aspect from one of my coaches in college, like, hey, I need you to perform on the field, but like, what else is going on? You know, there were a couple big things that happened in college, like on my team, kind of big dramatic things. Or, you know, my freshman year was Hurricane Katrina. So in Mississippi. And so I think that at some point I learned, there's a lot more than soccer. And in order to perform in soccer, I have to have my other stuff figured out somewhat. And so I think when coaches were able to, like, especially in college, put emphasis that like soccer isn't the only thing, then I was able to learn from that and then apply that as a high school coach.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You
Gotcha. Oh, you go ahead. Mine's a little bit of a change of topic, so if you want to go.
Okay. Just real quick, you mentioned Southern Miss, and you mentioned you have, you know, Jeff Pride, maybe not to debit card level yet, but you might get there.
Maybe. Yeah.
So Southern Miss, like, do you have Southern Miss pride, go Golden Eagles? And then two, I don't know that much about Southern Miss. Like, are there any like traditions there that you're really into or really fond of being part of when you were there?
I don't really have any like traditions for Southern Miss. I have a lot of pride just as a student athlete, like that. I think that will always be part of me. And the friendships that I formed there, like that I attribute that to Southern Miss. And I can't, so I'm, because even sometimes I've talked with other teammates and we're like, yeah, maybe we could have transferred somewhere and gone somewhere that was by the end a little more competitive, or you always think that, but I wouldn't change it because of everything that I gained from it. I definitely, let's see, not as far as like Southern Miss specifically, but every time around this time of year, it's Mardi Gras. And, Mardi Gras is huge in the South. Right. And so like, I always see everyone with like their king cake, and I was able, to go to New Orleans. It was close enough and stuff like that. So I think just kind of, I immersed myself in that culture, to really enjoy it. And it was a very different culture though for me, because I had teammates from the South, but then I had a lot of international teammates as well. Okay. And then a lot of the athletes were international. So I've gained international friendships from Mississippi.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Happy early, I guess not really early down there. Happy Mardi Gras.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, we would have like Mardi Gras break. Like we wouldn't even have class during Mardi Gras because no one in the South is going to go to class during Mardi Gras.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. I did see a picture on Wikipedia on the Southern Miss web, or the article about Southern Miss about Mardi Gras traditions there.
Yeah. It's huge. It's huge.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of international, how did you end up sort of getting to play in Iceland, and like, where's the connection there?
Yeah. Right. Totally random. Yeah. So one of my best friends and was my roommate at the time, Sarah McFadden, she's still playing for Northern Ireland's national team. And so she was over in Mississippi. We were playing together, and it was getting to be the summer prior, she had played in Iceland. So I think she had a connection through the national team and things. And she was like, hey, what are you doing this summer? And I was like, I'm trying to play some club soccer going back to Indiana. And she's like, you should just come play in Iceland. Like, I think sometimes there's some Americans in the league. You should just come over. And so I got the coach's email address and just emailed him and said, hey, I'm like looking to come over. If you want any Americans, like what could the setup be, that sort of thing. And he got back to me and had said, like, we're allowed so many international visas to come over and play. And I kind of took it was kind of a jump, because he said, like, you pay for your flight over here, buy a one-way, we'll give you a week tryout. Then we'll let you know if you can stay in Iceland or, head back. Yeah. So I, talked to my parents and I just went with it. And and it was great because it was really competitive. It was a whole new experience. I mean, I flew to Iceland. My luggage was lost. Luckily, I carried on my cleats. I didn't have a international cell phone, and I had to find this coach at the airport. Wow. I'm like, oh, who looks like they're a soccer player? Oh, everyone, because I'm in Iceland. Wow. And then I ran a fitness test that first day, and then they gave me a week tryout, and they're like, yeah, so here's your accommodations. I lived with Sarah so my roommate from college, and then another girl that had graduated from Southern Miss, also from Ireland. And so I had a couple of familiar faces there. But yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great experience.
Gotcha. So is goal in Icelandic still goal? Is that?
Yeah, that language as well? If I remember correctly, yeah. I learned a little bit of Icelandic. Like I could I could count to 10. And I learned like a couple, like Taya was stretch. Like there's, there's like little words that I don't really remember as many now, but it was pretty cool because each little town has a men's and a women's team. And that was the first time that I realized, kind of talking about like equal pay and stuff over here, is I mean, the same amount of people that attended the men's games attended the women's games. And it was really cool. Everything they had, we had, like locker rooms, uniforms, all of that. And people cared about the women's program as much as they cared about the men's program. And that was really cool for me to see, because I don't think I hadn't necessarily had one specific negative instance that I can think of over in the US where I saw that. But yeah, it was really interesting, and it was cool to see all the support and how big soccer is as well. I mean, you play soccer or basketball, that's it. You know. And so it was a great experience over there.
Huh.
Cool. It was very sunny. If you were there in the summer, they're like
it didn't get completely dark. I remember I had to put trash bags on my windows. But it was so windy. It was pretty chilly. It was so windy. But it was kind of like an old movie, Love and Basketball. It reminded me of that when she's playing overseas and the coach would come in and give his whole speech in Icelandic. And I didn't know what he was saying. I just knew like what, and then I'd like ask one of the girls and they'd kind of be like, okay, so we need to do this, this, and this. And then as I'm walking out of the locker room, he'd be like, all right, Erin, this, and this. And that was kind of, cause like he'd get them all pumped up in Icelandic, and all of them spoke English, but so that definitely helped. But it was just interesting. The language barrier was there for some instances.
I need to watch Love and Basketball now. When I was at West Virginia and in the women's basketball programs, it had those profiles of players, like, I don't know, pregame meal and Instagram or Facebook, all those questions. And one of them was favorite sports movie. And I would say approximately 70% of the women's basketball team of my 4 years at West Virginia would respond to that question with Love and Basketball.
That's awesome.
I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I think it came up on like, one of the video things the other day, and I was like, oh yeah, that movie. I used to watch that movie a lot.
Throwback.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess switching gears a little bit, but in mentioning sort of like the equality sort of between the men's and women's teams in Iceland and stuff, and sort of this past year has been kind of big, maybe because of the pandemic, but also separately just in kind of bringing more light to a lot of different inequalities in society.
Yeah.
And, for women in sports as well, it's kind of been a big year, right? It sort of started earlier on. There was the US, national women's soccer team, the whole lawsuit involving discrimination there. And then sort of throughout the year, we've seen like big names in women's sports like Naomi Osaka, kind of speaking out for justice and stuff, and more coaches, more female coaches in like NFL and like some more men's dominated sports, but in general it's kind of a sort of flux this year, I guess, in that direction. So what kind of is your take on the state of women in sports today, and maybe some of the direction it's heading, or
I mean, I think we're getting there, but obviously we have a long way to go with equality in many aspects, but especially women in sports. But I think with where media coverage and everything is today, I mean, it's not the same that it was 15 years ago. So as that progresses, then we need to have the same amount of progression with coverage of women's sports. And that's kind of how I see it. Also, maybe it's like my marketing background too, is like, how can we promote and cover women's sports just as much as men's sports? But I think you're starting to see it, like when we have, obviously I follow probably more women's soccer, but when we have players going over internationally and they're selling out of their jerseys, they're having the biggest jersey sales of ever, then I think that just shows that the support's there just needs to be the opportunity. So I think, and if that comes from, having the coverage of the games accessible to more people, or having the jerseys on sale, the same website that the men's are, things like that. So I think it just starts with baby steps. And then with support from the men's teams, support from management. And that's how we're going to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, I think we're starting, but it's gonna come from the top down, because we can fight and and yell and scream and everything that we want from the bottom, but if we don't have the support elsewhere, then it's not gonna make any difference. So
Gotcha. Are there any steps that you think sort of individual, if anyone's listening to this that like wants to like try to help out with this or something, that like someone, your average person, can help to sort of pressure something to come from the top down? Or
well, I think it's really just like tuning in, right? So I think it's just watching those women's sports and attending them, supporting teams. Whether, I know that like even with my club team right now, like we're always looking for sponsors. So even if it's like a $500 sponsorship, that might make a bigger impact than you actually know. And sometimes I think the sponsorship usually goes to like the men's team. We'll figure it out with the men's team first, and then we'll apply it to the women's team. But like, why can't it be both at the same time?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so I think that it's really just supporting. So supporting your athletes, and I want to say athletes and not just female athletes, because we're just athletes. And I have a shirt that says female athlete and females crossed off. And it's I think it says like judge by my ability, not by my gender. And so I think that just needs to be applied across, everything, is just support. And that might just be like sitting on the sidelines of a free game or something like that. But someone's noticing that, like someone's noticing the support, and maybe that's someone that is a decision maker. And so I think that's really just baby steps that you can do, supporting local, supporting fundraisers for any athletes, any young athletes, male or female.
Beautiful. So if anyone's listening to this, you want to do something, support Erin's club soccer team. Throw some sponsorship money her way. What's the name of your club soccer team?
FC Denver.
FC Denver. Look them up. Yeah, on the internet, I'm sure. Cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you say about media coverage, because I remember this summer when the MLS and the USWL like came back and started playing, or NWSL.
Yeah.
They both had these tournaments, but just in passing, I didn't see a lot of screens in my life here, but just in passing, the ones I did see, like MLS was kind of on, and I didn't look for it, obviously, but NWSL wasn't, and I knew it was going on at the same time. In fact, they were a little before the MLS. I think they were the first league to use the bubble and use it effectively. Right. And but yeah, it just seems in the few conversations about pro sports and pro soccer and around here that I heard of, it was kind of MLS dominated.
Right.
Interesting. But
right. Yeah.
You talk about support too. I don't know if you've seen, but for a while there, a lot of NBA players were wearing those orange WNBA sweatshirts. A lot of the stars like LeBron and CP3 and stuff. And I was like, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's what we need. Like we need, I think I always think about when people are talking about just like gender equality, and I hate when women are kind of like the man hater kind of thing, because you're not going to get anywhere without that support. And so same thing in professional sports. Like the WNBA isn't gonna, they'll get somewhere, but they won't get as far as they will if they have the support from the NBA players. And I think they shouldn't be against each other. They should be together, fighting for the same equality and bringing the other one up, or using the other one as like a stepping stone, or someone to look to, like, this worked here, so let's apply it here. And so I feel like that a lot of times gender, we're like against each other, like, oh, it's the US women's team is against the men's team, like fighting for this, but actually they just want the same. They want the same thing. And then the men's team supports them, they support the men's team, and then we're on the same page. And I think that's kind of where we need to get to.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think in terms of being a male, it's just a lot of males that I've interacted with. It's like, for no particular reason, I'm sure there is a reason, but it's like the first initial reaction to, for example, the whole women's national team thing is yeah, for some reason it's like you default to men's, like you said, versus women's in the mind, and it's not like, yeah, like you said, stronger together, like why can't
we're not trying to
and not either
away. We don't want to take stay away from the men's team. That's
Right.
not what they were trying to do. They just want to be the same as them. Like they're not, and I mean, I think that especially in that situation, people were probably thinking like, oh, the women are just, they're putting the men's team down, saying that they have won so much more. But I mean, the facts are the facts. It's the men's team that won more. The men's team have won more too. Like we'd say the same thing, but we're both on the national team level. So why can't we get paid the same? Or well, and even since it progressed past the pay, like just have the same accommodations. And I think that's what it ended up being. Is it's not that we're trying to put the men's team down. It's just we want the same accommodations as you. We're both on the national team. We're both playing for the United States of America. So why can't we have the same things?
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like you're pretty optimistic about where things are headed in that respect.
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of what I've said, like I feel like media is starting to pick it up a little bit more, and the awareness will be more progressive is kind of how I feel. If more people are aware of what's going on. I mean, I'm sure there are so many people. I mean, I didn't know the extent of the gap between the women's national team and the men's national team of what they weren't getting. And if I'm not aware, then how can we fight it, or how can we move forward if we don't know? So I think just that awareness with the media coverage and that continued growth there will really help it progress.
Yeah. Also, just people talking about it. I think word of mouth helps a lot too. When I was in the DC area and the Mystics won the WNBA title, and it was true that was like did not get a lot of coverage. The Washington Post covered it, but yeah, TV wise, it just wasn't really there. But people talked about it. I remember my sister saying, "Isn't that weird? The Mystics won and nobody knew." Yeah. And I remember people at the school saying too, like, "Yo, you're the Mystics in the championship right now. Like, let's go."
Yeah.
And so enough people talk, maybe that'll show up on. I'm sure it was on ESPN. But,
right. So maybe with that, then we just hold media accountable to cover that. Like more people talking about it, more people question, and then I think that just leads to accountability.
Yeah.
I was gonna say too, in like the example of the national women's team, like being like the best team, down in like the world,
Yeah, they are.
Like they get a good amount of coverage, but like for other teams that are like just as good in their field or like the best, and like we don't really talk about much at all.
Right.
Yeah. So like increasing that exposure and stuff too.
Definitely.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the Steve Prefontaine story, and the fact that he fought a lot for rights for amateur athletes, because he was like super famous, like maybe the best known runner in the United States, definitely the United States at that time, maybe ever, but was like living in a trailer and like ate like beans for dinner and stuff because he couldn't get any endorsements as to keep his amateur status at that time. And it was like, wow, so it's possible to like for the women's team to have coverage and people to know about it, but not know that behind what you see on TV, they do not have equal pay, they don't have equal equality.
And I think we've come a long way because now women are able to make a career of it. Because I do remember when I was younger, at one point, one of the early women's national teams, they posted something about all their jobs, right? Like some are working in banks, some are doing this, because they didn't have the resources to be a full-time athlete. And so I think, sometimes it's good. We can also be optimistic and look at where we've come from. So, but we have a long way to go. So yes, we've progressed, but like, where can we go even further?
Right. And hopefully it happens quicker. You can expedite that process.
Right.
But it's true that, for better, for worse, history is what it is. The men had, in some cases, like 100+ year head start.
Oh yeah.
in these sports. So it's like, it is natural that there would be some catching up to do on the women's side of athletics sometimes, just because that's kind of how things progress. Like I'm thinking of that example specifically, like back in the 30s and 40s, maybe after that. If you were playing in the NFL, that wasn't your only job. You had other jobs in the off season. So hopefully you can move through that a little quicker. And I think we have
definitely
on the side, but continue to do that.
For sure.
Cool. Well, thank you for doing what you're doing in Denver, and being willing to talk to us about that as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This is a major shift of gears, but I thought to a slightly less serious topic. But Sunny tells me that you used to work as a marketing manager for a brewing company.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have some knowledge about beers and the whole brewing.
I do.
Thing in general.
So, yeah. When I was marketing manager for a company that manufactured homebrew equipment, so high-end homebrew equipment in Indiana, and then I moved out here to Colorado. Denver, the mecca of craft beer, to work for a large regional brewery, Dry Dock Brewing. And I was their marketing manager for a couple of years. And then now I am marketing manager for a chemical supply company that mostly supplies to home brewers and craft breweries. So
so you're still kind of in the niche there.
Yes, still in the market. It's great.
Nice. So full disclosure, I would probably be the last person. Like I'm the opposite of you in terms of knowledge about beer. It's less than that. And John's probably not too far behind me. You can speak for yourself, John. But some of our listeners might be a little more towards you on that spectrum. And I thought it might be fun to do a little beer pairing game, perhaps.
Okay.
So this is how it's going to work. I looked up some famous, besides yourself, some famous alumni from Southern Miss. and I want to give you a name of an alumnus, and you give me a beer that you think would work well to pair with that alumnus, and maybe a little description of why you think that's the case. Does it sound like something you're up for, Erin?
Okay. Can you give me like information on the alumnus, like
yes,
so that I can make?
I just went with people.
This is a test.
Right. I went with people who I knew who they were. So I think at least two of these people you're definitely going to know. Hopefully the other two people you know as well.
I can think of at least one that I guarantee is on that list.
Okay. So maybe it's this one, Jimmy Buffett.
Yep.
I didn't know he's from Southern Miss. Or you went
let's see. Let me think. I'm going to go with a Mexican lager.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people might have a lime with that, and I kind of think of like an easy drinking on the beach.
Yeah.
You could drink one, you could drink 10. Maybe you mix it with a margarita. You know how they have like the beer ritas. I'm gonna go with a Mexican lager for Jimmy Buffett.
Nice. There it is. Good God Almighty, which way do I steer? Not that we condone that. The rest of us podcast. It's a good song. I listened to that when I was like 10, probably. That was my favorite Jimmy Buffett song. Was Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Nice.
Okay,
I
next
never realized
one.
that line was in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, whoa. Do you want to put that out there, Jimmy Buffett? A lot of artists say much worse things than that, but it's like just such a classic, like sing-along song.
Yes, it is.
All right, next person, Ray Guy. Do you know who Ray Guy is?
He's the kicker.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Let's see. Who did he play for?
Played for the Oakland Raiders.
Okay.
Played for a long time. He might be the only place kicker in the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Yeah, at one point I met him at a baseball game and I got a signed picture from him. Yeah.
Wow.
So I knew who he was.
Super cool.
Sweet.
I think we were out in the outfield like drinking together. So in
that's
college,
awesome.
that's how I knew who Ray Guy was.
Sharing drinks with Ray Guy. That's cool.
Yeah. Let's see. The Raiders.
I want to say he was also a quarterback earlier in his career, but ended up kicking and being famous for kicking.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a barrel-aged stout for him.
Okay.
So big name, did a lot of things. So like a big beer, which would be barrel-aged. And kind of nostalgic, right? Because the barrel-aged, like it has to age for usually at least a year or so. But then, I mean, a lot of people like it, and yeah, I'm gonna go with barrel-aged for that one.
A lot of people like Ray Guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds like he's done a lot, so we'll go with that.
Super cool. Right, nice. 2 for 2. Okay. Next one, Brett Favre. Brett Favre.
Yeah, so this was the other one that I figured you'd bring up.
Well, Brett Favre. I mean.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I really want to say Golden Ale just to be on because I think whenever I say Southern Miss, he's the person that people would know from Southern Miss. So I'm going to say a Golden Ale to go with the Golden Eagles.
Nice.
Because I feel like if he had a beer, it would be branded for Southern Miss. I mean, if it was like around Mississippi, they're probably going to put like his name or maybe a picture or something on that brand and like serve it at the football games. So we're going to go with a Golden Eagle, Golden Ale.
Golden Eagle, Golden Ale. I like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is it hard to like go to Southern Miss's campus and not know that Brett Favre went there? Like, is there a lot of stuff around?
There's not as much as you would think. Like in the athletic areas, there is, and like his jersey and stuff. But I do remember when I was there, like he would come back and coach like the spring football game. So that was a big deal, like the gold versus black game and stuff like that. So everyone definitely knows.
Yeah. Favre, nice. Last but not least, Kat Cora. You familiar with Kat Cora?
No.
Okay, so she was a chef on Iron Chef America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, got her start at Southern Miss.
All right. I haven't watched that show, so I don't feel as bad that I didn't know her name.
Okay.
We have to go with something like exotic, or I'm gonna go with a sour. So we're gonna something that's like spontaneously fermented, which is a little harder to control. Okay. And yeah, let's see. I'm gonna go with I want to say a dark cherry sour. That's
dark cherry sour.
Wow. Okay.
Sounds appetizing.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty
I'm
good.
not sure if that's the word used for beers. Sounds.
Oh, definitely.
Palatable.
You can use whatever word you want.
Sounds great.
I like to say I'm a beer geek, not a beer snob.
Okay. Nice.
So you can use whatever words you want. We can talk about beer however you want.
Cool.
Yeah, because if she's a chef, then there's going to be a lot of opportunity for her to express herself. And I feel like with sours, they're always different, even from batches. All batches of beer are going to be a little different, but especially with sours, I mean, sometimes they're going to throw some yeast in there and know exactly what it's going to do. So we're going with that.
Wow. Nice.
Okay.
Man, I'm glad we played this game. That was fun. You know your beers. Sonny was not lying.
I've been like taking mental notes too. It's like, okay, these are different things I'll have to try now. Like,
you can let me know like what you like to taste, and I'll give you beers to try.
Okay. Awesome. Good stuff. So spontaneous fermentation, is that like spontaneous combustion? Like I wasn't really planning for this beer to happen, it just kind of happens, or like how does that work?
Kind of like in Belgium, they did a lot of like open fermentation. So like you literally pour the beer out in a large vat, and then it's kind of all the organisms and stuff that would just naturally come in there would create the fermentation. I mean, with the yeast and everything. So you're not exactly sure where that's going to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like gutsy.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean,
kind of edgy too,
You drink some sour beer, and then I either tell people that they want to or they don't want to look up a sour beer fermenting, because it literally looks like there's mold on the top. I mean,
wow.
That's what it is. It's that sour. So take your pick if you want to see it or not.
Yeah. Well,
I think they're delicious, so I fully support.
okay. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Does that
I never
then,
knew.
are there like differences in like area and like region that, because I my very distant touchstone to that is like sourdoughs for like
Yeah.
baking, and like the yeast for that apparently tastes different.
Right.
Depending
Yeah.
on the
So I mean, you're
area.
gonna get different yeast strains and everything. And then I mean, some like there's like Cantillon is one of the oldest breweries in Belgium, and they're known for their sour beers. And you can actually still go there and see like the original like vats that these cool ships that with the windows open like up in the top of this building that they would put the beer in and let it cool and throw some yeast, and then whatever came in would come in.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it's definitely also regional. I mean, beer is it's dependent on like the ingredients and then also temperature. So if you're in an area that's gonna not get cold as fast and that's gonna affect the beer for sure. So
Dude, okay.
Yeah.
Learn.
I like supporting you do now, John.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
So,
yeah.
sweet. Well, very fun. So I think maybe to kind of close things out, we might get, we're on one track, sort of hopped over to a different track for a little while there. But now coming back onto the sports track, just in general, we like to close out with this broad question. Why is sports important?
Oh, wow. That's a very I'm gonna say because it's a teacher. Sports, I've learned, I'm not gonna say more, but I've learned and developed into who I am because I've learned it from soccer. So like I kind of touched on like the discipline or even just how hard I can push. I'm really competitive, like, and it fuels that. So you can kind of learn your boundaries, you learn your thresholds and about who you are. And I think that it pushes you to figure that out. I mean, even if you play sports, you start playing them and you're like, I don't like that. Well, what you can learn from that. What don't you like about it? Do you not like a team aspect? Do you want to do something that's individual? Do you not like to be outside? Like, I think do you not like physical, something that you have to actually like run around? And so I think that with sports, you can learn all of that and then you apply it to other areas of your life.
Sports is a teacher. I like that.
I'd say it's the teacher.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So.
Well,
awesome.
Yeah. That's a great way to end. Send on that. Wow. Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.
This has been super fun.
Indeed,
Appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing all your stories and knowledge and wisdom and thoughts with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Best of luck to you. And one more time, name of your club soccer team, people, and maybe how people can support what you're doing there.
Yeah, so it's FC Denver. And so we play in the Colorado Premier League. And really, I know we're always looking for like sponsorships and things like that because the men's team is able to play in like a higher league. And so eventually the idea is that this team would continue and maybe be like a semi-pro team here in Colorado. Okay. So It's only a couple years old, but there's so much talent here in Colorado that I think we can get there.
Sweet. I think you will. Best of luck to you.
Yeah, thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Absolutely.
Go FC Denver.
That's right.
Super cool. Well, there it is.
Yeah.
From the granite of New Hampshire to the banks of the Missouri, thanks to our listeners from points in between and not in between. Till next time, he's John and I'm Adam. Stay classy, Frostburg.
Thanks, guys.